Yes, indeed. It's time for the polling station. Paul Krishnamurty is in the beautiful Greek island of Rhodes, and I am in Dublin, and William Kedjanyi is in Birmingham, but he has been at the Conservative conference this week, as you will have seen on the Star Sports website. William, there was one line in your piece which rather piqued my interest, and I actually wanted to ask you about this, and it was in relation to the great Liz Truss and her performance and so forth at the Tory conference. She's obviously been widely criticised for her ridiculous U-turn this week, but I did quite like this line for you. In terms of her delivery, Truss probably matched expectations. Bracket, her reputation as a public speaker is well established, for better or worse. What did you mean by that?
What I meant by that is that people weren't exactly expecting a big barnstorming speech from Truss. They weren't expecting her to be, say, even half as good as Keir Starmer's speech was last week, because the parameters for success were different. And also, we know what she's like as a public speaker, even though the country her that well, which might be surprising considering her negative ratings. It's actually not a big thing, her public speaking. People don't expect Liz Truss to give amazing speeches. So that was what I was referring to. And I think she about met expectations, but didn't do much to help herself.
Will she lead the Tories into the next election? 5-4 yes, 8-13 no. Staying with you, William, this has been basically a catastrophic start for her. She's had this massive come down, backtracking on the tax situation. She's under massive pressure already. Stories of heaves in the Tory party. How do you see this playing out?
I think she's going to struggle to make it there. I think we have to remember that she hasn't just made it through Tory conference, so now she'll be fine. There are lots and lots of big problems and big issues that she'll have to deal with, and several of those can become almost as divisive as the top tax rates cuts. They can become almost confidence issues. Benefits in an issue where Dean Doris, Penny Mordaunt, Robert Buckland, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Michael Gove, on one side definitely for it, at the moment ambivalent upon this. This is the thing. Budget. They can say mini budget all they like, but it's a mega budget, and at some point, I think some of it will have to go to Parliament. So I think she'll struggle. And also, here's the thing: she's already between 19 and 33 points behind. How long the Tories really accept that, I'm not sure.
What do you make of it, Paul?
Well, obviously it's a car crash, and you know, I think the Tories are. I think the Conservative Party is under serious existential threat, and it couldn't be any worse. However,
on the BBC, this is another one I wanted to throw at you. He was talking about the Tories post-Brexit. The ringmaster has left the circus, and now the lions are eating the clowns.
But I think the Conservative Party has just descended into a series of vested interest factions, right? And so just
a vested interest within a vested interest within a vest, almost.
Yeah, and there are some real old school, genuine members of the Conservative Party, but they were those forces were kept far away from power under the Cummings-Johnson regime, right? Yeah. And I don't think they're about to reclaim the party at all. Now, regarding Truss's future, I think she's going to struggle to make the next election. If
you're backtracking now as well, because you sort of predicted she'd last it out.
Yeah, I know, I still am, so it depends on the date. I mean, we are in a very dramatic scenario here. If we are looking at 2024, then I think, or late 2024, then I don't think she can survive that long.
This was 6-4. It's now 5-2.
Yeah. However, the rules of the 1922 committee means she's safe until next autumn. And I find it very hard to believe that it's going to be acceptable for Sunak supporters, opponents, to change those rules. It will be too divisive. And so therefore, I think she'll get a year, and we will revisit this at the conference next year, which will probably be another car crash, and there'll probably still be 20%, 15 to 20% or whatever behind in the polls. Now, as we know from the Boris Johnson markets, they're very driven by recency bias. And so if you're going to back her not to survive till the next election, wait. I don't think it's happening imminently. I think that next summer you'll get good odds about it, very good odds about it. There's also another scenario here where you could get undone by backing her now to go, which is that the government collapses. You know, that's not out of the question. If 37, whatever it is, 37, 38 Tory MPs were to resign the whip, maybe that would be less because we've got a few by-elections, etc. I think we've got absolutely catastrophic local elections for them in May. Really, they would be banned under any situation, I think, and they're going to be absolutely terrible. If at some point the government collapses, there's a vote of no confidence, she'll be leader. She'll have to lead them into the next election. There won't be time to remove her. So that could all happen within the next year whilst there is no... So taking odds on about it not being an next election makes no sense to me at all.
Okay. We've 2022, 11-2. 2023 is evens, William. I just wondered, what was the general vibe? I mean, we had the Greenpeace protests and so on, but you are a man for pressing the flesh, so to speak, not quite literally. But what was the general vibe at the press conference, or at the conference? What I guess the people on the floor, is there the unease that I would expect that there is there when this party looks to be almost falling apart?
The vibe was chaos and division, and a lot of unease and a resignation to having lost the next election. Depending on how people viewed the magnitude of the crises, and it was interesting because different people give you different answers from wings of the party. Some people think, like Paul, it's existential. Others think it's a Blair-style wipeout we're facing. Who knows if we'll come back, but it will be like a decade or so. Some of us are thinking that this can be sort of turned around, that it's not going to be this bad in particular. And others are sort of worrying about their own internal things. They don't want to see other bits from the budget go. They still got sort of axes to grind with others. And then there are probably category fives of people who just wish, God, can we just shut up? Can we not be taking lumps out of each other at fringe panels? Can we not say we're doing a coup or whatever? So it was mixed, but I can't say people were happy in general.
How did they think, Paul, that these cuts in terms of taxes and so forth, which effectively they didn't have funding for, which the Bank of England obviously had a nightmare about, really? How did they come up with this? Like, how did they think this was a solution?
I think they're completely lost in libertarian ideology, which, as anybody who's encountered me in the last 20 years, no, I think is just fake, right? It's fake vested interest ideology, right? And just as I've never convinced anyone who believes in it that what they believe in is nonsense, I don't think you're going to convince those. I mean, it's just an ongoing, this is politics now, isn't it? Right, where there is no common ground, even on basic issues of, like with Brexit, is it possible to even find a consensus whether that's a good or a bad thing, or whether particular aspects of it? No, because people are too tribal, and they are lost in that libertarian ideology. Just going back to the betting. So, as I say, I would be wary of playing the survive for next election market. If anything, I'd go survive, because I think she'll be there for a while and the odds will move. But the better betting strategy is to play next Tory leader. Okay, I've just had a piece out this morning. So I backed Sunak originally, but I've cashed that out for a profit now. He's shortened up. I don't think it will be Sunak. I think that they will resist him. He will be seen as responsible, or his team will be seen as responsible for undermining Boris and undermining Truss. The bet, I've had three bets. I had Theresa May at 200 to 1 because I just think she could be a caretaker, right?
Yep.
Two bets I've had are close allies, and I think they're in great position. One, Suella Braverman at 20 to 1. That's a fantastic price. I mean, she's in one of the three great offices of state, so she has a perfect platform. She is ultra populist on immigration, which is what they want to hear. And, whatever we think about it, is probably the Tories' best hope of surviving to the next election is playing that card. She ran last time. She's perfect. She's perfectly poised to run again. The members will love her. And the other person I back is her great backer, Steve Baker, who's 80-1, Betfair. Steve Baker, you may have seen this week, apologising to Ireland and the EU over the rhetoric on the Northern Ireland Protocol. Amazing stuff, right? And he even said the radical view that, you know, who would have thought it? Apparently, footballers that take the knee aren't woke Marxists, right? Who would have thought it? Now, that's a guy who's rebranding, repositioning, trying to strike a conciliatory tone because he knows there is a bigger fight, leadership contest, whatever, ahead. And there you have the head of the ERG and the choice of the ERG for leader last time. They're inheriting the party, that lot, I think. Good value bets at those prices.
Yeah, actually, last week on Trader Chat, Flynn Gowers revealed that Star Sports had taken a whopper of a bet. I forget the odds now, but it was
4-6.
4-6, I think. It's obviously been slashed since. Labour were actually odds against for a long, long time, this market, basically to win the next election. I can't for the life of me see how this doesn't win, Paul.
No, I can't now. I cashed out my earlier bet against the Tories, took the profit at evens, but I had to go back in when it was all imploding 10 days ago. Various prices from sort of 4 to 5 down to 4 to 6. And to be honest, now I still think they're a decent bet. I just can't see it. I mean, I never thought I'd be in a position of saying that they should win a majority, and I wouldn't bet on the majority because that is still an ask, big hurdle. But how they don't win most seats is really hard to see.
It's funny the timing of it as well, William. This England is played out now on Sky Atlantic over the last couple of weeks, and Boris is actually in the first couple of episodes. I think he's come across as what he sort of was, which is a somewhat endearing but sly type of individual who was only interested in himself, who was a bit of a people person sort of thing. But the Conservatives aren't going to do well out of this. How do they win the next election?
I just can't see the turnaround, because I think the underlying brand, and this is something that we get lots of good data on nowadays, is probably too damaged for
it's toxic.
It's toxic. It's too damaged for a 2-year repair job. So I don't see how they win it. I can see how they pull back this position, but it would be a really sort of hard grind, and it would take them more than a year. And also, let's not forget, as Paul notes in his excellent Betfair update, whatever the economy has done now, mortgages will do to their core base. So they've hit a floor. I don't see them bouncing back quickly, because you've got 100,000 people having to come out to renegotiate that. And the Tories base is sort of very closely aligned with higher ownership. So without getting too into detail, can't see them bounce back. I can see them improving, perhaps with a change of leader, but I don't know exactly who that is. Just on the next leader thing, Paul makes a great case on his free, and I might well follow him in. I backed, along with a friend, Emma Burnell's on the show last week after Labour. She's a Fabian member. Me and her had a joint bet on Michael Gove, which we're probably going to reassess the position on.
I was going to say, I thought you said the two you had a joint at a minute. I was like, oh, that was an interesting show.
Yeah, we went in halves on Michael Gove. I think he might be a little bit short now, but I wouldn't count out a sort of caretaker option. I think Paul has the right idea. Prices look for big prices in different scenarios. So Braverman and Baker are good ideas, but if you think it's going to be a caretaker style thing, then maybe your Goves and your Rabs or whatever. But spreading the field, I don't think is the worst idea. If you think that Truss isn't going to make it, or that something might happen soon, or even next year, because no guarantee that just because it's next autumn, they want a really long, drawn-out leadership election. I think anybody in the party wants that right now.
And just briefly, William, Quarting, since that move, the dollar and the sterling are actually not a million miles off parity at the moment. And I'm just wondering, within the Conservative Party, do the root and branch say, like, where are we going with this? She's basically lost our kind of I she's lost a lot of respect, I would say, already. And I'm just looking at, will a vote of no confidence in her be triggered by the MPs before the next general election? 8 to 11, yes. I don't know. Like, I mean, how can she survive this? I mean, she's what, 2 or 3 weeks in. The Queen has passed away after meeting her. It's been a car crash. She looks like she's totally out of her depth. Will there be a vote of no confidence?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't go wading into it like it's a certainty, because there is just a possibility that she's told the game is up and she just goes.
Right.
And while she's quite determined, I don't know if she's got the Johnsonian streak, in the sense that, you know, he just stuck it out and kept denying the attitude to the very end. I don't know what Truss will do. I think she's fairly determined, but there's the possibility that it happens in another way. If I had to say, I'd say probably just lean towards yes, but I couldn't be confident on it. I think if you believe it's going to happen, use that advantage in other markets.
Okay, we're going to finish up on the US, but before that, we're going to have a runoff in Brazil, Paul. Bolsonaro and obviously Lula are going to go on a runoff because Bolsonaro did outperform the polls a little bit, and this has been put forward as one of the most important elections possibly in the history of the world because of the Amazon rainforest. I think we're fucked with climate change, but if we have any chance, the Amazon probably does need to be preserved. What have you made of it, and does Bolsonaro have any chance in the runoff?
I don't really think he does. He has outperformed the polls, but Lula's very close to the 50% anyway. And, you know, the next two candidates have both endorsed him, and we fully expected those people to come over. So whilst it is closer than we thought, and I'm sure this last month will be very divisive, it's a hell of an uphill task. And so I think that Bolsonaro will deliver as we've discussed on the show. Neil put up as his bet of the year back in January. I think that will deliver. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how Bolsonaro takes defeat as well. Well, you see, that of course is, and that's why the Betfair market has been big all the time, because there's been this ambiguity. The thing is here is, in order to pull that election denial scam off, he's going to need support from other players, and there's no way the United States are going to do that. There's no way the European Union are going to do that. So I think that idea is dead in the water, and I think that we'll get it. We don't have a market on William, but I think he was available I think Lula was available sort of 1 to 2, give or take, in recent days in European markets.
He was. I actually backed him before the first round, and it's still a little bit short. I've got the option for a little bit of profit on Betfair, so I think people are of the belief he wins the runoff. I couldn't claim to be an expert with this. I would be a little bit worried by the size of the polling miss, possibly first time round, but I think there are certain vibes of the last presidential election with it. So I'm just sort of crossing my fingers and hoping that Bolsonaro is seen to have underperformed on the key areas of the Brazilian population. One thing I did notice, apparently he's going to bring forward social security payments, and I wonder what the reaction to that will be. But that's about as much of a reading as I've got on it at the moment. Also, new polls will be very.
Yeah, who cares about the Amazon as well? It's only for tree huggers. It's just 4 weeks now to. It's all
and the anti-life coalition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're all just a bunch of lunatics. 4 weeks. It's Friday the 4th actually, so it's just over 4 weeks until the Senate elections in the US. Democrats hardened into 8-15. Paul.
Big week. We've had 2 October surprises, maybe 3 October surprises, all pivotal. And I've been back and forth for this. First of all, in Georgia, Herschel Walker, former football star, who's the Republican candidate.
He's the madman.
He's a complete madman and like the most absurd political candidate. He makes Trump look sane. Trump look like a normal candidate. But he is very much on the ropes, having paid, after the revelations that he paid for his lover's abortion, despite being an absolutist, no abortion in any circumstance. That story has continued to that apparently he also had a child with that woman.
I wonder, did Trump really vet this character when he put him forward?
No, I don't think for a minute they vetted him, and I think that is indicative of everything that's crazy about the Republican Party. And I think certainly my initial thought was that locks up the Senate for the Democrats, because I can't see the Republicans winning the Senate without Georgia and Nevada. However, two bombshells since that have got me very worried, right? And I think it has a big impact on the House market and probably Biden's future. First of all, Elon Musk buying Twitter, right, which is bankrolled by Saudi Arabia. So to me, that's the end. That could be the end of the public space.
People will think you're a complete lunatic, you're a looper, you've all these conspiracy theories. I completely believe you on this, and this is frightening. Yeah.
Follow the money. Right, follow the money, follow the emails. We've seen the emails from the court case. We know who's behind him. We know it's coordinated with Trump. Right, we know what Elon Musk's all about, and they are going to, to me, I'm in a real dilemma because I need to use Twitter professionally, right? But I need a new platform to migrate to, really, and I don't know. I'm thinking about writing a sort of 5,000-word essay on Substack or something about all this subject.
I actually have an idea for a platform. We should touch heads on this. We should have a joint meeting on this.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Right. But getting back to the betting again, that could impact. I mean, it's not done yet. The Musk business is not done yet, so maybe that won't happen in time for the midterms. We'll see. But the bigger picture is what Saudi Arabia have done yesterday. OPEC cutting 2 million barrels of oil per day. This is just throwing the elections to the Republicans, right? Biden has been on the comeback trail for months because gas prices are coming down, right? Now they're going to go up at the worst time. You look at the average gas price in America is $3.87. In Nevada, it's $5.50, right? I could definitely see this derailing Joe Biden, and the move to me is definitely part of World War III, which is that alliance of dictatorships and mafia states versus rule of law democracy in the West.
It's like, you get like, I'm probably one of the most bleak people in the world about climate change. Now you get this, William. How are you in the middle of it all?
Just a note on Musk and Twitter. I would agree it's a worry, but I think it's much more of a 2024 worry than it is now. Also, we just can't forget the potential that Musk has to completely blow this in any number of ways, because the running of a platform as big as Twitter is so much more work and so much more complicated than I think people would make it seem, and definitely more complicated than he is anticipating. So absolutely, I think it's a worry, but I think there's also potential that Musk tanks it. I'd be much more worried about gas prices, to be honest with you, and if there's any inflation because of the Federal Reserve trying to coordinate and stabilize the global economy. If the Fed hikes up interest rates a point or two so that the dollar doesn't get too strong for its own good or something like that, that would worry me a bit more. But that said, Republicans are still not doing themselves any favors. Herschel Walker is just an example of this. And the quality of their candidates, it can't be helpful for appealing to independents. So I think it makes it just an even fight in the sense that Democrats have some structural advantages in their favor, the Republicans do too. It's just going to be a good old-fashioned punch-up, really.
Yeah, plenty of punch-up in Florida. I'm going to Downpatrick tomorrow, and there's a horse called Sanibel Island running, and I'm on the TV, so I may just run off on a climate change kind of rant. And while introducing his trainer, Michael Horrigan said, what sort of chance does this horse have? What do you make of Sanibel Island? What do you make of climate change? Before we finish up, Paul, Russia. Where is Putin's general well-being at the moment?
Well, Russia is imploding, right, internally, and it's losing the war.
How does he get taken down? He has to get taken down from within, and people have to realize we're fucked.
Well, I mean, look, predicting exactly how that's done is beyond my pay grade or anybody else's, because who really knows? But they are within the Russian oligarchy establishment, whatever you want to call it. They are at war with one another, right? You're even getting it on the TV shows now. You're getting some people openly criticising it. So I do think he's on borrowed time. But as I say, I always thought, I firmly believe that the invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent control of energy and food supply was part of a wider part of World War III to destabilise the West. I think that part of it's gone, but Saudi Arabia has stepped up to the mark with this thing, and I dread to think what the economy in the West is going to do in the next year, 2 years. I really do.
Yeah, I think we need to move away from fossil fuels ASAP. Last word to you, William.
100%.
I'm 100% behind diversifying energy. I think the takeaways of this week are there are more problems down the road for Truss. Don't believe for a second that this is all over. It could just be the beginning. In America and Brazil, it's going to be down to every last vote, I think. I think we've got two contests which are very even, and I think it's going to be marginal factors. And also, if you're playing in the Conservative Party markets, just be mindful of different factors that can knock against each other.
Slight apologies for the little interjections there in William's line, but the polling station's reputation is well established at this stage, for better or worse. To paraphrase the great man Kedjanyi, who comes from Birmingham today. Paul was in Rhodes, I'm in Dublin. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back next week with the polling station.